Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Friday to everyone. Thank you so much for coming in and for joining us on this our Friday Lunch and Learn. Welcome in, and please, when you come on in, please let us know where you're joining us from. We are delighted to be here with you one more Friday as we have another lunch and learn session. Today we'll be talking about the art of good decision making. The art of good decision making. And decision making is not just anything that happens automatically, it is an intentional process. Good decision making is an intentional process. So we want to thank you for coming in today to be with us on this another lunch and learn. With me today is Dr. Marcia Thomas. Dr. Marcia Thomas is joining us from out of the beautiful island of Jamaica. And Dr. Marcia is a certified Christian leadership, life coach, trainer, and consultant. Dr. Marcia empower and equip beginning and seasoned career professionals and Christians in leadership to not just survive, but thrive professionally and personally. She's also a seminar and workshop facilitator, and you can connect with Dr. Marcia on Instagram at Dr. TP Motivate 2. You can also connect with her on LinkedIn and Facebook at Dr. Marcia Thomas. Dr. Marcia also has an excellent newsletter on LinkedIn, and it is called Christian Leadership Essential. If you are not already a part of this community, we do invite you to go right ahead and subscribe to this newsletter. You will certainly be glad you did. And also, Dr. Marcia has her website, which is Dr. tpmotivate2.com. Please go ahead and subscribe to her website if you can. And another of our hosts today is Dr. Siegfried Howell. Dr. Howell is joining us from the beautiful state of Delaware, and he is a life happiness and relationship coach and consultant. Dr. Howell has numerous books available on Amazon. If I were to start naming Dr. Howell's books, I probably would take me a few minutes to really say them, but he does have several books on Amazon, and he can be contacted at at www.siegfriedhowell.com. He also has a Stan store, which is stan.store/Dr. Siegfried Howell. Go over to his store and you will see numerous amounts of his items and books there that you can purchase. He's also on Instagram at Siegfried Howell. He's on LinkedIn as Dr. Siegfried Howell, and he's also on Facebook, has a wonderful group talking about relationship success basics. So I wanted to make sure I introduce our guest today. And as usual, yours truly, I am Dr. Janice Brooks. I am a leadership consultant and trainer with the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team, also a life strategist, a mentor, helping individuals and all life growth customer-centric organization with their leadership growth and their team empowerment. We work together as a team, and we also work together individually, so you can connect with us. So we are jumping right into our lunch and learn for today. And I'm going to start with Dr. Marcia because we're talking about the art of good decision making. Dr. Marcia, if you were to define what a good decision making process is, what would you say is decision making? Over to you, Dr. Marcia. You're on mute. You're on mute, Dr. Marcia.
Good
Okay,
afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, we're hearing you.
Yes. Happy to have you joining us. I want to define decision making as having an option from a multiple set of options. And from that the available options, you are involved in a cognitive process where you choose the alternative or make a choice after you have evaluated the different options to see which works for you and which will make you achieve your desired outcome or results. You weigh the pros and the cons, you look at the consequences of your actions, and you also look at how you can avoid the risks and the consequences. And after you have done that, you make a decision cognitively, or you decide to do one thing over another. That's my definition of decision making.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Marcia. Dr. Howell, if I was to ask you, do you have any addition to that? What would be your definition of good decision making?
I would like to agree with everything that Dr. Marcia stated. One thing that I would add to it is consider the biases. A lot of times we have biases and we might have blind spots. And so collaboration to me is the biggest thing, making sure that you use appreciative inquiry to get the viewpoints of as many people as possible so you can make the best possible decisions. And like Dr. Marcia said, you have to weigh all the alternatives. Sometimes things as simple as you might have a better decision that you can make, but you may not have the resources to carry it out or implement it. So you might have to go with a secondary decision. Sometimes time might be a factor. And so because of that, you might want to make decisions based on as much information as possible. So that's what I'll add to it.
Excellent points, both. And if I was to say anything else to that, I would also add that decision making is really an art. It's the art of choosing to use or accept different courses of action. And I also want to add that indecision is also a decision. So if a person decides not to do anything, they have also made a decision. Just that's not a good decision sometimes. And sometimes it can be a good decision. So making every decision in our lives, whether they be a simple decision like deciding what we eat for lunch today, or what time we go to bed, those are simple decisions. But there are more complex decisions that we face every single day in our lives. Decisions that will alter or change the courses of our lives. A decision may be, what job do we do next? Or, where do we live? Some of those decisions can be very overwhelming. And each of these decisions, they actually carry with them some kind of consequence, or they may dictate the rest of our lives positively or negatively. And so understanding that every decision should be made carefully so that it become more or less a good decision is very, very important. So Dr. Howell, what are some things that you believe that people should think about when making a decision that may be that may be an unpopular one in their lives?
Well, the first thing you have to do is not do it based on emotions. You have to take the emotions out of it and be as objective as possible. So some of the things that you can do is consider the impact on the stakeholders, if there's stakeholders involved, or if it's people, then, regular people besides the stakeholders that have skin in the game. Find out as much as you can about how that will impact them. Get as much relevant information as possible, the amount of money required for each of those decisions, the amount of people that need to be contacted in order for you to make those decisions and implement it effectively, the amount of additional training that might be needed in order to implement a management system that gets you towards your goal. Ensure that the decision that's being made also aligns with the values and the mission statement and the goals of the company. So for example, if you're Nike, you have a certain reputation. You want to make sure that every decision you make enhances your brand and not hinders or hurts your brand in any shape, form, or fashion. That's one of the reasons why every time an athlete gets in trouble,
close the door.
one of the things that happens when athletes make bad decisions is they get the endorsements pulled. And that's because what the athlete did was not in alignment with what the company represented. Make sure that all communication is done clearly and transparently, but not just that, they must be timely. A lot of times companies might keep or withhold information from people until it's deemed relevant or timely for them and not for the stakeholders or the rest of the public. Implement a thoughtful and clear change management plan. Some of the best decisions don't come with clearly defined plans. And so, I can't remember the saying, but the road to success is, well, I wouldn't even do that one. But the bottom line is this. A lot of people have clearly great intentions, but they're not clear and they're not thoughtful. They're not communicated in an effective way. So you have to make sure that you have a plan of action that people can wrap their minds around, people can buy into, or you might find that everything looks good on paper, but it doesn't transfer into actions. Provide support for the people during the transformation time, and make sure that people have all the money, time, and resources needed to change, because it's going to be stressful. It's going to be painful for a lot of people. So you have to plan ahead. And last but not least, reflect on the lessons learned, both positively and negatively, so that you can increase the positive things, but decrease the negative things as you move forward.
Wow. Dr. Howell, that was a great deal packed into that one response. And I do agree with, most of the things that you have said there. But somebody may be on this line, Dr. Howell, and this is Dr. Marcio's question, because somebody may be on this line and they may say, well, what if I do not have the time to do all of what you are saying there? And they're asking, what are 3 ways or 3 keys to a faster making decision process? Dr. Marcio, what would you say to that person about making a faster decision, the keys to making faster decisions?
I would say, first of all, that they need to clarify their objectives very clearly. They need to know what they are about and make sure that they define their goals. What is it that I want to achieve? What is the outcome that I want to have? What is the desired effect? What is the problem that I need to solve? What is the solutions that I need to come up with to match with the problem? So first of all, they must know what they want to do and why they want to do it. Then they want to gather the relevant information. So they want to look at what is out there, what they know, what they need to know. And one of the things about gathering information is that some of us get caught up in trying to find all the information that is out there and try to cover every ground and everything. So they get trapped in what we call analysis paralysis, where you keep looking and looking and digging. And so you're not able to make a decision, especially if it is an urgent decision or an immediate decision that needs to be made, where you really don't have enough time to pause, but you can really get the information because you just need to target those who have the facts and the information. And then the final thing that you want to do is to consider or explore the options that you have and the alternatives to solving this problem or to meeting your goal and the time frame, so that you can now target down on the choice, the best choice. And the reason why I say you must explore your options is that it is never wise to just settle on the first option that you have. It's never a good thing. Even if your back is against the wall, look at all the options that are available and choose the best one that would fit your situation. So in summary, it would be that the three keys for most that is most effective when you have to make a decision quickly expediently and fast is that you must clarify your objectives. You must do your legwork to check to see what are the facts, what is out there, and you must now explore your alternatives.
Well, yes, thank you so much. So we have the way to make the decision on a longer path, and that's what Dr. Howell explained earlier. And then Dr. Marcia wrapped that up with explaining how to make a faster decision when we don't have that time, because there are some times when we're going to have all the time to prepare for the decision, but there are going to be times where we're just going to have to make the decision fast. And Dr. Marcia said, clarify, do a quick leg work so you can gather some facts and then explore. And Dr. Howell has also gone through the plan of action, get the support, reflect, do the lessons. So we do have both areas where we can make the decision, whether you have a longer time or you have a shorter time. We thank you so much again, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today, where we're talking about the art of decision making, good decision making, that is, because decision making sometimes can be bad or they can be good. So we are talking about how to make the good decisions. And if I was to reflect a little bit about how can utilizing different types of decision-making model helps us to come to an agreement or amicable decisions, I would reflect back on my day in corporate, in different banking institutions, where we had to make decisions, whether it was intuitive decision, whether it was a rational decision, or whether we had time to make more like a creative type of decision. And when I talk about the intuitive type of decision, that was one that we had to make very often. People had to make decisions, we call them make it on your feet. You had to depend so much on your gut feeling to make a decision. And this type of decision making is not just dictated by the information that you have or the data that you have, but it is dictated by that instinct, that gut feeling that you have. And this decision making process requires that you have some kind of past experience or previous experience of like a pattern or some distinguishing thing along the line, where when you see it again, you said, my gut feeling tells me that this is not the right decision, or my gut feelings tell me. Yes. And we used to say that gut feeling is so important, because sometimes that gut feeling is like 95% it, if you follow that. And sometimes I personally believe that gut feeling is like the Holy Spirit. For those who believe in God, it's like he comes and he said, this is the right decision, do this. But sometimes we pause to reason things out, and we said, let me look at this, look at that. And the Holy Spirit is gone now, because you start to question what he gives you. And so he allows you to make a decision. And sometimes you look back and you say, have anyone ever looked back and say, if I did only go with my gut feeling the first time, then things would have been better. And so that is one of the ways that you can also make decision. Then there's a creative type of decision making model, where you gather all of those information, you get the insight, you try to put them together in a creative way, and you weigh the pros and the cons, and you get the decision made. And sometimes we have to do that depending on what we're doing. And it also ties in with also that decision model that we also call the rational decision model type, where that is definitely down to analyzing the information, getting everything in an orderly and a properly fashion. And most organizations, that's how they do it, because they sometimes don't go with the gut feeling or go with the creative type. They must have the information in front of them that gives them that good decision making process. But Dr. Howell, I am coming back over to you at this time, because what are some of the questions to ask yourself or even to ask others before a decision is made?
Well, first of all, the one thing that I think is the most important that people underestimate is making sure that you can clearly define the problem that you're trying to solve. And the reason why that is so important is because a lot of times what we're solving is a symptom of a problem, and not necessarily the problem. A lot of things go wrong in life, but they are symptoms of problems. And so one of the techniques you can use is called the 5 whys, where you ask why. Why did this happen? You come up with an answer, then you ask, well, why did that happen? You come up with the answer. And if you do that for a series of 5 times, you find that you get deeper and deeper into the root of the problem. And so utilizing the 5 whys will allow you to identify what the problem is. And then you can ask yourself, what are the key decision criteria? Is this a quick problem that needs to be solved, or is this going to be a long-term problem that needs to be solved? How many people are involved in this particular problem-solving situation? So, for example, if the problem is going to affect the whole company, then you need to get more people on board. If it's a quick fix, then you can look at your resources, look at what time frame you're looking at, and then keep moving forward. Next question is, what are the creative options that you have before you? And then moving on, what data or expertise will I be needing for each one of my possible strategies? So as I'm looking through my list of possible solutions, what data is needed, what resources, what expertise, what training, what is needed for each one of those? How much time is involved? Because if let's say you have a deadline, by tomorrow something needs to be produced, then you cannot get as many people involved because it is a quick acting decision that has to be made. However, sometimes the things are so bad off that you might have to ask the question, well, do we have to prolong the launch date because there's so many things that are going wrong now that we did not foresee? And that's why you have to check as many of your criteria as possible, because there may be areas that you may not see simply because you did not delve deep enough when you're looking to see what other areas will be affected. Some other questions that you can ask. What additional resources will be needed to facilitate a smooth transition? The people that are involved, money, time, expertise. Who will this decision impact the most? So, for example, if you are a bank, you have to please your stakeholders first, but then your customers second. Because the stakeholders are the ones that put the money in. The customers also are important, but if your stakeholders start to take the money out, you have less money for your customers. So you have to look at those hard decisions to see, okay, who's going to be affected the most by this decision? And based on that information, how can I move forward? And last but not least, what potential risks or unintended consequences exist? And you have to look at that from the now standpoint as well as the near future standpoint to make sure that you might be saying, well, I don't see any impact that's going to happen negatively based on this decision. But are you looking into the future to see what kind of negative impact is going to be associated with that decision?
I believe that we need to be teaching this to some organizations because these are critical points in good decision making. And as I said that, let me just pause here to say that Dr. Howell, Dr. Marcia, and myself, we are available to assist organizations with all of these session topics that we have discussed for all of these lunch and learn sessions, whether it's decision making, whether it has to do with leadership, whether it has to do with purpose, whatever it is, strategies. We have the know-how, we have the expertise, we have the skills, we have the education, we have the knowledge to help organizations and individuals in these areas. So Dr. Howell, those were some really very important questions to ask before the decision is made. But sometimes, successful decision may not please all parties, but it requires asking and answering questions nonetheless to determine its success or its failure. So Dr. Marcia, what do you see as the main difference between a successful and an unsuccessful decision?
Well, for me personally, and from experience, I I have sum up that successful and unsuccessful decisions rest on two pillars: outcome and process. So if your decision is successful, then the outcome is the intended one, and it is a favorable outcome because it solves the problem that you intended it to solve. It provided the appropriate and relevant solution to whatever issue was out there, or it assists you to reach your goal. The unsuccessful decision constantly carries you to a negative end. The end is not desirable at any point. And so you keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result. That can't happen. So the outcome is always favorable for the successful decision making. And even if, because I have to put that in, even if it is not, all points of it are not favorable, because sometimes we make decisions and parts of our goals are met and the other parts are not met. But that in itself is not a negative thing, because it channels you into finding out why those things are not done. So it's a learning curve that perfects your role to make a decision at a higher level or in another direction to pull it all together. So we have to be very cognizant of that. So let's look now at process. Process, to me, when a successful decision is being made, it means that you covered all the angles. You looked at all the biases, you look at the consequences, you look at the pros and the cons, the positives and the negatives, and you made the best decision using what you have. And then the next thing about process is that you would have gone through careful consideration. But the unsuccessful decision is usually based on haste or anger or emotion and not logic. And sometimes too, it is you make that decision because you did not give the careful consideration that you should have. And so you end up being unprepared. One bonus for me is that in all of that, whether your decision is successful or unsuccessful, and you discover it based on the variables I have stated above, there is learning. When we learn from our successful decisions, we have a syndrome as human beings that we continue doing the things that work for us. But the successful decisions that we make tend to develop certainty the more successful we become, and make us more confident and make us believe that we are becoming wise in decision making. And so the lessons we learn, we apply them either in good or bad ways. The unsuccessful decisions must also teach us. But many times, when our decisions are not yielding the results that we want because we are not carefully considering when we are making them from emotion and not logics, we are not using the facts and so on, we tend to blame something or someone for the end result. But if we really pay attention, we would learn from those unsuccessful decisions and make the choice to reconcile those things that are working against us and preventing or hindering us from making good or successful decisions.
Wonderful, wonderful. Wow. And this was such an interesting discussion today. The art of good decision making. And for every single one of us, we have to understand that with every decision, there should be some form of strategy or strategies. If I was to touch this just for a minute on the Bible, if you go through the Bible, most of these decisions that these men and women, ordinary men and women throughout the Bible, had to make, they had to use a strategy, whether their strategy was to pray, whether their strategy was to wait, whether their strategy was to advance, whether their strategy was to ask. They had to use some strategy or the other, whether it was a complicated one or a simpler one. to make sure that whatever the final outcome, they would be better for it. And so if I was to think of some questions to ask ourselves, or persons to ask themselves after the decision has been made, I would say, has the problem been solved? Because for every decision, there is something, whether it's a problem or something that needs to be advanced. Has this been solved? Has the desired result been achieved? And the next question to ask, has the measure of success expected, is it there? Is that measure of success now realized? And is everyone involved in the process satisfied? And I personally put a tick with this one, because sometimes at the end of the decision-making process, you're going to have a decision-making process where at the end, 75% of persons are satisfied, which means that that's the whole. There are other decisions where only 50% are going to be satisfied. So you also have to ask yourself that at the end of the process, what percentage of persons, or what percentage is satisfied with this process, this decision-making process? And another question to ask, how will this decision that is made affect those that are involved, whether it's going to affect them positively or negatively? Because we said that sometimes we're going to make decisions that are going to affect people negatively, but really and truly it's the best decision that you could make at the time. So how has it affected them, or how will it affect them? And then finally, I would say, what are the benefits that will be derived from this decision? Because at the end of the day, every decision that we make, we want to make sure that there is some kind of benefit attached to the decision that we make. Otherwise, why are we making a decision if there is no benefit to anybody from the decision? So that is what is really important. So as we wrap up, I'm going to say, Dr. Marcia and Dr. Howell, 2 minutes each, or 1.5 minutes each, to put your final points to this discussion today. What would be your takeaway points for the audience on good decision making?
My takeaway points are going to kind of coincide with what you said. You said that you cannot please everyone. And so when you're looking at the decisions that need to be made, you first identify the people who need the decisions the most to go in their direction. And you can only get that by doing the proper analysis, by doing your background research to make sure that the right people will be benefited. However, if everyone has stake in the game, make sure that everyone is uncomfortable just a little bit, but they all get something out of it. So for example, if you're looking at the stakeholders versus the customers in the bank, if you pander to the stakeholders too much, you're gonna lose customers. So you have to make sure that the customers get something also. So maybe the bankers don't get an 18% increase, maybe it's 15%, and the customers get a little bit of what they need also. And so by making sure that everyone is a little bit uncomfortable, but everyone gets something out of the deal, that's the best way to increase the amount of people that are happy. But the second part to that is, if you can't make both parties happy, make sure that you're making the correct people happy, because the correct people are going to be the ones that will either boost your business or hurt your business if they do not get, or if they do get, what they need. And so making sure that you're on the right side of the fence is the most important thing in making an effective decision.
Wow, excellent points, Dr. Howell. Dr. Marcia, your wrap-up points.
Well, I want to say in my wrapping up that for you to make decision making is something that we do every day. And as you said, even when we do not make a decision, we have made a choice and to do something alternative to what we are doing. There is no neutrality in decision making, because your decision, whether you make it voluntarily or involuntarily, subconsciously or unconsciously, that decision works for or against you. And so I am saying, when you are making your decision, you must know who you are and what you really are about. Because a double-minded man, the Bible says, is impatient, is unstable in all his ways. And the next thing that I would also say is that you must make sure that you are making the decision in the best interest of yourself, if the decision directly applies to you, or in the best interest in those that you are placed in charge of and who depend on you to make the decision for them. And so you must test the spirit, the Bible says, to make sure that your options and alternatives are really some things that are worth considering, so you can make the choice, the final choice. And so the final choice rests with now the options that you have. And so you consider those alternatives. And when you test the spirit, and when you clear your double-mindedness and the fog that is there, you now make a decision. And that decision usually works in your best interest, because you have considered the ways and you have made a choice because you are wise.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that if we follow these tips that have been given here today, and I call them tips because we have not even scratched the surface of good decision making. But if we follow these tips that have been given here today, these can transform decision making from a stressful process into a process that gives us more confidence and make us more in control of our lives. So what I say here, even if it's a tough decision, one that can carry some irrevocable consequences, please worry less about the decision and think more that you are in control. Embrace every decision as a good thing that you have to do and to make. And the results that come from that, when you embrace it, will be a happier and a more confident decision. When you run away from something, when you look at something as being an over-mounting thing, then it becomes worse. But if you embrace it and look at it as something that you can do and you have the ability to do it, then it becomes easier and you become a more confident person for doing it. I want to thank you so much, everyone. I want to thank my co-host, Dr. Siegfried Howell, life, happiness, and relationship coach and consultant, Dr. Marcia Howell, who is also Dr. Marcia, certified Christian life coach, trainer, and consultant, in equipping and empowering career professionals and Christians in leadership to not just survive, but to thrive and to do it professionally. Dr. Howell tells us that he coaches and equips men who struggles with internal, intimate, and professional relationship. He's all about life, happiness, and relationship. So we want to thank you so much today. Yours truly, Dr. Janice Brooks, your leadership consultant, life strategist, a member of the Maxwell team of certified leadership coaches, trainers, and speakers. Please join us again on a Tuesday morning as we have another audio session right here on LinkedIn. And then on Friday again, when we have our usual lunch and learn. And please don't forget the fireside chat on a Tuesday, August 29. This is this Tuesday coming up, where we will be hosting our seminar on uncovering the truth about questions. You don't want to miss it. This is a registration only session. So we do ask you to go ahead, pick up the link, drjanicebrooks.com, and register. Also, this is for those who are more so for those who are in Florida or across the United States. If you live anywhere across the United States, particularly in Florida, you are asked to join us this evening at 7 p.m. while we do the kickoff of our meetup group. This is where we are going to be having some serious empowerment over the next few months. As a matter of fact, watch us. We're coming for the 52 states of the United States of America. So you need to join early so that you can become a part of something greater. The link is right there on my profile. The link also is right there on my website. Go ahead and connect and join us at 7 p.m. You'll find the Zoom link to this evening session. Please make it a date and don't be late. Once again, Dr. Marcia and Dr. Howell, thank you so much. Audience, you have been beautiful. You're always here with us. And we thank you so much for joining us for another Lunch and Learn. See you next week. See you later, as a matter of fact, as you join us. God bless you and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Take good care and bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.